So let's get into the super user role in our demonstration scenario. In our scenario, you are once again an administrator at Contoso Limited. And Contoso Limited has a business unit called the Life Settlement Group. Within the Life Settlement Group, there's a user named Marisol Garber. Now, Marisol Garber was granted the super user's role directly. And we already discussed that's not necessarily best practice. In addition, Contoso has recently divested the Life Settlement business unit. And so Marisol Garber is no longer part of Contoso Limited. So we're going to remove her direct assignment from the super user's role. The next portion of this scenario is, if you'll remember, Contoso Limited recently acquired a company named GreyJ. One of the employees in GreyJ is Joshua McGee, and he needs to be a member of the super users to recover documents. Now, as we discussed before, the best practice is not to directly assign users to the super users role. So a group called the super users group has been created. We're going to make Joshua McGee a member of that super users group, and then assign that super users group the super users role. So let's go over to Visual Studio Code and run through these two scenarios. All right, here we are in Visual Studio Code, and I've got a file open here called AIP Actions. It's located in the Module 5 folder of the scripts. If you're looking for these scripts, you can find them on my GitHub in the Azure Information Protection repository. The first thing we need to do is get connected to the Azure AD RMS service. So I'm going to go ahead and run get credential and connect to the service. All right, so type in my username and my password. There we go. All right, and now we're successfully connected to the Azure AD Rights Management Service. The first thing we're going to do is run get command and look for any command that contains the string superuser. And so that'll return all of the commands that deal with managing the superuser. Let me expand this a little bit so you can see it. So these are all the different commands you would use to manage the superuser feature in the Azure ADRM module. The first thing to do is check and see if the superuser feature has been activated. So we're going to run get AADRM superuser feature and see that returns enabled. So we know that the feature is currently enabled. So now we'll run two more commands. The first is to get any users that have been assigned the superuser role. And as we can see, Marisol Garber has in fact been assigned the role. We can also check and see if any groups have been assigned the superuser role. And you can see that none have. So the first thing we're going to do is get Marisol Garber out of the superuser role. So the command for that is remove AADRM superuser and then the email address of the person being removed. We'll go ahead and run that. And now she has been successfully removed from the service. The next thing we're going to do is set the user group that should have the superuser role. The command for that is set AADRM superuser group. You do have to pass it the group email address. And this corresponds to a superuser group that was already created in Azure AD. Okay, so now that group has been set as the superuser group. Important to note that you can only have one group assigned the superuser role. You can have multiple users assign the superuser role, but only one group. So now that we've successfully added that group to the superuser role, let's go over to Azure AD in the portal and add Joshua McGee to this group. All right, so I'm in the Azure portal in Azure Active Directory. I'm going to go to Groups, look for the superuser group. There it is. Click on that. Go to Members, and go ahead and add Joshua McGee. There he is. All right, he has been successfully added to the super users group. So now Joshua McGee will be assigned the super user role. The best practice is to only leave this role enabled while Joshua needs to use the super user role to unprotect some documents. As soon as he's done with that, the best practice would be to either remove him from this group membership or turn off the super user feature. And because the group membership is cached for a little while, it's actually better to just turn off the feature entirely.